Hello, legends. Boy, have I got a guest for you. We are going to be talking about Mickey Mouse moon landings. We're going to be talking about cloned celebrities. But probably most importantly, we're going to be talking about the lost civilization of Tartaria. Let's go and meet Guy. Have I thought about getting a...
Really big mug.
Oh, yes. So, what the public don't see, our wonderful friends out there, is if you look at the other side, you'll understand why I
Ah,
always drink from this mug. And it's not coffee, folks, and it's not tea. I drink um, dandelion coffee because it's both herbal and alkalizing. And I do drink decaf tea. That's one of my filthy habits. I still got to. You got to. You can't be perfect, Guy, can you?
no, no, I totally agree. My old doctor used to say, a little of what you like does you good.
Yeah.
Mentally, does you good.
The problem was I liked a little bit of rum in the morning, and it was usually a bottle by lunchtime,
Oh, wow.
and that's just to whet my appetite for everything else. Um, Guy, I'm so honoured that you're on the show. I'm going to say a big shout out to one of our dear subscribers. I'm so sorry I didn't write your name down when you said get Guy on the show. And I went to YouTube and I found a few podcasts that Guy was guesting on. And I thought, how come we've never met? And then I realised that actually we probably did meet at the Shine Festival, but we didn't even know it. So welcome to the podcast, Guy.
Thank you for having me on, Chris.
Oh, absolute pleasure. And friends, we've got a guest in the studio, as you can see. We've got Ruby, who will be bringing me drinks and possibly dishing out the massages later. And if you see me looking over here, folks, I'm not ignoring my guests as I get accused of in every podcast. I'm looking at my second screen here because I'm a one-man band, unlike Joe Rogan, who's got Matey Boy there helping him do everything. Here in the sticks, it's just me. So I'll be getting up some stuff here, just like, for example, Guy's website. Here it is, the tartarianempire.co.uk. I'm just fascinated even to talk about that. So, Guy, in no particular order, can we start with the old moon landings and how that led you into, you know, can we call it a world of conspiracy, or is that being rude to people?
No, I don't think it is. And this is something that I lock heads with. People will say, I don't like the term conspiracy theorist. It's a perfect term because I theorize acts of conspiracy against us. That's precisely what it is. Um, so yeah, that I am a conspiracy theorist. I wear a tinfoil hat, and and for every person out there that thinks that I am doing something wonderful, there's somebody else that accuses me of being insane and needing to be medicated. So yeah, but my journey down the rabbit hole started in the 80s, and it was my father. But it was actually Freemasonry, not just the moon landings. It was his obsession with Freemasonry that led me to where I am now.
In what was he a Freemason or was did? Oh, okay.
Yeah, as was I. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a funny one, that isn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, he joined because he was reading books that you just wouldn't find on the high street when I was young, from Atlantis to the Sphinx, Holy Blood, Holy Grail, and then he moved on to David Icke. He started reading Stephen Hawking, and encouraged me to do the same thing. But he joined the Freemasons believing that he would be given occulted knowledge, that he would ultimately progress high up enough to know who built the pyramids and who pulls the strings of the puppets. But he didn't get that high. But what he did do is he used it to accelerate his career. He was working in the city, and within 5 minutes he's on the main board of directors for a huge PLC,
You
all off the back.
don't say.
And then when he retired, he walked away. He said, I'm done with it. It's not for me anymore." But he would never tell me what really happened there. He just kept telling my mum, "Laugh as much as you like about me wearing an apron and going to meet my friends and having special handshakes. They run the world." So I joined, because he wouldn't tell me anything. I joined, and I learnt a lot about King Solomon. I learnt a lot about how the knowledge is passed down, the origins of Freemasonry, not what it is today, how it was infiltrated by the Jesuits, and also I saw how the police work at a high level and government as well, because one of my, well, someone that was a close friend until I started speaking out about Freemasonry, he was David Cameron's advisor for the Metropolitan Police. So I got to see how the voting system works. We would always know who the next prime minister was going to be, usually 6 to 8 weeks before any voting took place. And to see that happen and your suspicions confirmed gave me a better understanding of really how this system operates. So I learned perhaps just as much about government and policing as I ever did Freemasonry.
Yes, it's funny. A friend of mine was in the SAS, the Special Air Service, and he said that in the SAS you can see a trooper tearing a strip off, for example, a sergeant or a warrant officer, and at first you're kind of what, this isn't military etiquette. The lower rank never shouts at a senior rank, and then of course you realise that they're in the lodge,
Mm,
and that the trooper is the Grand Master, and that the warrant officer,
yeah.
he's the new recruit, so to speak. Yes, Paddy Mayne, very famous name in the SAS, Colonel Colonel Blair Mayne, was a noted Freemason. I'd say the trouble is, when you consider that originally it was an Enlightenment order, the whole thing about joining a boys' club, especially one where you maybe think you're a bit more important than the people that aren't in it, I'm just suggesting,
Oh, they do.
kind of play into your ego a bit there. That's literally like the total opposite of the Enlightenment journey, isn't it?
Yeah, you're absolutely right. And when I joined, they refer to people that aren't Freemasons as ordinary people. So they do believe that they are a cut above. They really do. And that's instilled from day one. But like you quite rightly said, it's used in the most unusual ways where what I found, that there weren't any serving military uh, guys in my lodge, but there were a lot of high-ranking police, because I joined, my lodge met at Great Queen Street, which is the Grand Lodge of the United Kingdom, the headquarters of Freemasonry, and it was very close to Scotland Yard. So we would often go there for dinner. We would dine at Scotland Yard because there wasn't a dining facility at Grand Lodge, which is a bit unusual. And how it would work would be that you would have a very high ranking police officer want to join the Freemasons. So the detective constable or detective sergeant gets them in, and then they find themselves in a position where, like you said, this high ranking officer is now a low ranking Freemason, and the low ranking police officer is a high ranking Freemason, and has now sworn to do anything within their power to protect their brother and to cause them no harm and to help in any way they can throughout their life. promotion comes up at work. They're underqualified. They can't not give it to the man that got them into the Freemasons, because it goes against what they swore to do. And that's how it's used. And I watched that. I watched that happen.
Yeah, I see it happen in our military circles. I see the changes in people. Um, yeah. So moving on then, Guy, the Apollo missions, that kind of had Masonic written all over it, did it not?
Yes, yes, I think so. And where are you on this, Chris? Do you believe that it was Stanley Kubrick and it never actually took place? I mean, Buzz Aldrin started saying the same thing, didn't he? And quite famously. But there are a lot of people out there that do believe that it happened, but they were actually, when they landed, so shocked by what they found and by what greeted them that they left, vowing never to return or being told not to. So I still sit very much on the fence with it.
Yes, I actually visited the moon myself. Uh, didn't find any green cheese. That's a myth. Found the flag of Namibia. They didn't tell you that at school, did they, folks? No, my take is really simple. The whole moon, Elon Musk, let's go, like, screw you. How about we learn to live as an enlightened species before we go destroying other planets that technically we don't even know exist in the kind of physical sphere that or framework that we believe. We can't even not pollute our local river, and yet we reckon that we can go to other planets. It's a little bit silly, but I love the Jack Parsons story, and I love the way that his story, which was called Strange Angel, they made a TV series about him. I saw the sneaky way, like the mainstream media do, that they correlated the Apollo missions landing, quote unquote, landing on the moon with the work Jack Parsons put in, with Jack Parsons propulsion laboratories that he'd founded out there in the Californian desert. Now, here's the thing that the occultists, the Kabbalists are not telling the public is, no, he went to Thelema, Aleister Crowley's sex and magic cult, because he couldn't get a rocket into space. Not because he could, because he realized the impossibility of it, and that it wasn't going to happen under the, certainly, I think he realized the notion of taking a tin can, chucking some fossil fuel in the bottom of it, and a few Freemasons, and sending them to other planets is slightly ludicrous. So he wondered, is there any other way we can manifest this through essentially what we call black magic? And at the same time out there, you had an interesting thing going on, because you had the start of a place called Hollywood. Hollywood being the wood, the magic that they used to make the magic wands with. And the people that founded Hollywood they came from a few different places, but two of which, one, it was the Nickelodeon cinematographers in New York City that started to come under competition from Edison and Kodak and the like. So they said, screw you, we're going to take our porn cinemas. That's essentially, you paid a nickel, you looked into this strange contraption and you wound a handle and you saw a girl taking her clothes off. No prizes for guessing which contingent started those cinemas and now run the porn empire out of LA. So these guys went out there, and of course they're all schooled in Kabbalah and ancient Judaic mysticism and all this kind of stuff. At the same time, there was a certain mustached painter in what became Germany, who kicked them all out of his country and said, no, we don't want smut and filth here. Um, so they absconded from there. There's, in fact, on Wikipedia, there's a whole list of films that were banned in Germany under Adolf Hitler. So you've got this interesting mix of the occultists coming from two different strands. So the mainstream media, the entertainment industry, is founded on the occult, and the rocket propulsion industry founded on the occult. Well, no prizes, several years later when you see the Apollo mission broadcasting from the moon, what's really going on in that scenario. So you did ask me, Guy, that's my take on it.
It's funny, I recently put a post up on Facebook about Hollywood and why they called it the silver screen. And I wonder, and this is only a thought that rattles around in my head. I'm guessing most people watching this will have heard of the Loosh farm theory, where they harvest our energy out through our emotions en masse. Well, what if the silver screen is called the silver screen because it's a reference to a scrying mirror? And that to contain us all in one room, and that is repeated across the world when something premieres, the energy that you could harness from that is incredible. So I wondered if that is the magic of Hollywood, the fact they are using or were using the silver screen to harness our energy, to trigger at certain emotions at certain points collectively, and that is then harnessed.
Absolutely. You've only got to look at what Glastonbury's become.
Mm,
From a humble folk festival, a few hippies smoking wacky back in playing guitars, to this, it's a
yeah,
pyramid stage, for crying out
yeah,
loud, folks. What is literally a Babylonian pyramid with a capstone that lights up, that has the such acts as Jay-Z and
yeah.
so on and so forth. But the interesting thing is, on the other stages, they've all got horns above the doorways as you go in. And when you look at this from an energy, vibration, and frequency perspective, then you start to see rock concerts of completely. I mean, heavy metal, what was all that about? Seriously, banging music, you could
Yeah.
argue, and great if you love that sort of thing. I'm envious of you, but really, it was almost like I don't know, like a satanic mockery stroke loosh. I say that tongue in cheek. I mean, obviously everyone's got their favourite heavy metal music, and including myself. But from a reality point of view, yes, they're harvesting the energy of the masses, aren't they? The same was said for the gladiators, that these amphitheatres were to amp up the sound
Yes.
of the masses as they witness these atrocious acts of sheer carnal evil, the most devilish you can become in a society before the society phases out, which we'll come on and talk about. They were putting this to the masses, and that noise, that roar, was creating this, being amplified into this energy. And no doubt no doubt the dark network were getting something off that. But yes, does it make a bit of sense?
Yes, it does. Yeah, perfectly. I totally agree. And that's what it's all about, isn't it? I mean, we're presented it as entertainment, but there's so much more than that. And I agree that it's bread and circuses, that there is distraction by attending these events, by going to, see a concert or watching gladiators fight. Whatever you pick, it is detracting us from what's really going on out there. And at the same time, of course, you often leave one of these events feeling very grateful for the people that put it on. That may well be the very same people we despise. But then we do live under some sort of mass Stockholm syndrome. But yes, I totally agree. And I think today the Olympics are perhaps a good example of the satanic ritualism being hidden in plain sight, and most people just don't see it. But that's another rabbit hole altogether that I've been exploring for some time.
Yeah, but more and more people are seeing it going, aren't they?
Yes,
Which
finally, people
which
are
is
starting to wake up.
interesting.
Yeah, I think 2020 backfired. Some people say that it was an IQ test. How intelligent are people? Will they willingly take a trial medical intervention without question? Now, you can't label everybody with that because some people were put in a position where they had to take it to keep their job, to leave the country that they were in at the time. There were a number of reasons why people that we would consider to be awake and fully aware were put in backed into a corner that they didn't want to fight their way out of at that particular time. So I understand that, but it is referred to by many as an IQ test. I have a theory. Every now and again, it hits me that what if 2020 was actually put in place to separate the people that can be woken up and are awake from those that are never going to? And so they have a clear understanding, a database, so to speak, of all the people that can and want to be enlightened, that want to raise their frequency, their vibration, that want that connection, that are looking to, looking for gnosis. They're looking for knowledge. They want to ascend. Could that have been part of it? And I do often wonder that.
Oh, let's don't let me forget to talk about the Christos with you. That's like my,
Yes,
you know,
I
I,
love that too. Yeah, I'm fully on board with that.
I try and do a live show every day, and explain to people the enlightenment journey and that waking up is a big part of it. But waking up to realize that, say, for example, medical interventions are not really in your best interest. I mean, that's not really rocket science. That's just being aware that, oh, my mate Dave just went like that, and then my auntie
Mm,
Carol, she just went like, maybe I shouldn't. What I make people aware of on my show, guys, is that the enlightenment journey is about changing our energy and our vibration and our frequency, which means rejecting that old world, not voting in some orange guy or getting that lovely Boris Johnson back in. He'll sort it. Oh, what about that Nigel? Oh, he drinks a beer, doesn't he? He's gonna, you know, all you're doing is you're you're using your left brain apparatus and not, you know, as they say in scripture, sitting at the right hand side of God, accessing the right hemisphere of the brain. And so, yeah, well, look forward to coming on and talking about that. Did you ever think during that nonsense and seeing the way that behave, and it was bloody difficult. Literally, we've got Marines now, both serving and veterans, going like that, and we all know them and we all love them. Haven't seen anyone call out the elephant in the room in you know, in the veterans community. Not sure if it's because they're all feeling a bit stupid now, that people like myself that tried to prevent this. Me and my veterans, we marched on Downing Street. We played the last post in front of 10 Downing Street, holding up pictures of the fallen who gave their lives for the freedom of this country. How many veterans could I get up there, Guy? I think on our best day we had about 40, 45. And there's allegedly between 3 and 6 million veterans in this country across all the services and the blue lights, right? We managed to get 45 people. That is how asleep people were.
yeah.
Now, at that moment, especially with all the shit you get, do you ever think like maybe I should join the Illuminati?
I know what you mean. I lost my Facebook account in 2020 because of what I was putting up there. But more than that, and I had quite a big following at the time, but more than that, I lost some friends too. One of them, ex-serviceman actually, he clashed with me on several posts. He was one of those people that was posting each time he had a booster. And I messaged him privately and said, I don't think that you should be doing this. One, I've done research into it. This isn't good. It's a trial as well. If you want to ignore what I'm saying, you'll understand and accept the fact that it is a trial. Booster, by definition, suggests that whatever you had first wasn't quite up to it. Um, and he said, let's agree to disagree. And he carried on posting that I don't know how many he had, but I saw every few months another post that he'd gone and had another shot. And then he contacted me to say he'd been recently diagnosed with terminal cancer, and he died last year, along with my cousin, who I hadn't spoken to in the end. We stopped speaking, and about half a dozen friends that we lost. And you can't, because I would like to consider myself to be a decent person. You can't go back to them and say, "I told you so." They already know that. So it's a very awkward conversation to have when someone's been diagnosed with cancer and they know that it's terminal, that it could well be as a direct result of the very thing that they took that you tried to stop them having. It's so awkward.
It. Are you familiar with your body's alkalinity? I'm sure you
Mm,
must be. So this has been huge for me. If I can only ever talk to our wonderful audience and tell them one thing, it's like, understand you're a living organism. You have a pH balance, and your well-being. I'm using that word on purpose because the other word I'm going to get in trouble. But your well-being all comes down to this. Not bogeymen that can jump from person to person. And the hard thing is people I love, like the most important people in my life, Guy, that have got the big C, literally as we speak. And I know it would cause them more pain if I was to try to approach them on this subject and say, do you know how your cells function? That they need, certain things to survive: air, hydration, glucose, which comes from your food, but it's got to be the right level of glucose, not an acidic, not an abundance of glucose, which comes from carbohydrate diet. And that if you get those things, is it called homeostasis, when you get things in balance, that your body will naturally start to heal itself, especially if you start introducing breath work, fasting, this kind of thing. But I genuinely know at their latter stages of this existence, it would cause more friction in our relation.
yeah.
That we've never had. And so, yeah, it is tough. It is tough. There's absolute legends dying around me as we speak, and of course you don't know, but on the balance of probabilities. So yeah, sorry, mate. Where we was going with that. So going back to the old moon thing, then. So have we got a similar take on it?
Yeah, in my latest book, which is 87 different rabbit holes, it's called Conspiracy Theories, and one chapter is on the moon. And what I find strange about it, I mean, there are lots of different theories about what the moon actually is. But what I find strange, if we are to believe what we're told, that its position alone determines our tidal system. And by moving it just a few feet in a different direction can alter that dramatically. If it is what we are told, if it is a solid object, well, let's not say a solid object because it may well be a craft, but if it isn't a hologram, if it is something, if it is a physical thing, then I find it very unusual that it just so happens to be in exactly the right place for our realm to function as it does. That suggests to me that if that is the case, if it is a real object, that it was put there, then of course what exactly is it? Why doesn't it rotate like we are told planets do? So my bottom line with the moon is I just don't know. And I don't know because I don't know anybody that's been there, or at least claimed to have been there. I don't even know if I believe we can get there, because they seem to have, when they spoke to to Armstrong and us and Buzz Aldrin, when they landed and they went out and did these press conferences, they don't look to me like people that have just achieved something no one else has ever done before. They actually look quite somber. They look a little bit sort of disappointed, demotivated. They're not jumping around excited, having just achieved this incredible first time feat of magnificence at all, do they? And I find that really weird. And during that whole process, the Van Allen belt seemed to have moved. How did you get through the Van Allen belt? Well, I don't think we did. Well, what does it move then? I mean, it's a belt of radiation. You went through it in a tin can and waved out the window. Now let's talk about how the actual rockets worked in a vacuum. So there are lots of things that I don't understand, and the problem is that it's a subject that it's very difficult to find anybody out there that can give us the answers, because they'd have had to have been on it or know categorically that it isn't what we've been told for us to be able to tick a few boxes and fill in some blanks. So I just have, it's an awful thing to say, Chris. I haven't got a bloody clue.
See, I come from it from an esoteric point of view, from gnosis.
Hmm.
Either you know you're being fucked with or you don't. And if your left brain rationality, program from primary school, high school, university indoctrination, you're going to look at it and think, well, they could not have faked that. Oh, come on, guys. I saw it on the television. And this really is in that individual's mind. That's clearly how they see it. It's like, well, they wouldn't lie to us. And when you understand the level of the deception and the sheer evil we are under, everything is an inversion. Everything. The medical narrative is the most hideous, evil scam. I'm getting all like, ooh, so I'm on my soapbox now. But I'm talking, when you bring a newborn, the greatest thing you will possibly ever achieve, the person you love, you fucking fight lions for this kid. Them Babylonian gangsters, or fakers, should we name stealers, they've come up with this conniving plan over the last 200 years to tell you that their companies need to interfere with your beautiful little baby. And they know damn well what the result is going to be. They know. Same with a medical. They knew what all that was. This is evil beyond belief. Add to that the fractional reserve, debt-based money slavery banking system. Add to that the hideous toxic carbohydrate diet that most people don't understand. 2 slices of toast, even a bowl of porridge, it's not fucking good for you. Yeah, it's not good for you. So what are we saying? That when you develop the gnosis of the evil, and gnosis, folks, means knowing. It's when you walk the journey, when you go on the path, you just start to know things that before you didn't know. And it comes from like having your third eye open, and what historically they referred to as the sixth sense. You sense. So then when you look at the moon, I've absolutely no doubt what's gone on there. And I think I've made it probably quite clear, Guy, haven't I? These guys are fucking scammer, evil, gaslighting, thieving vagabonds, And do I hate them? No, I wouldn't waste my time. For me, It's about understanding it, that this is how some people have been cultivated on this planet we live in. We need to recognize it, and we need to dilute their evil with our genuineness and our goodness, and call them out. The notion that until what was it, like the 50s or whatever, that our ancestors have come through billions of years of some form of evolution, whatever people want to think, through famine, through starvation, through illness, to be here. Your DNA means you are a legend. You are a massive, massive, massive legend. And yet we got to 1950 and these psychos said, oh, forget all that about your evolution. You got to come to our big pharmaceutical companies, otherwise you're fucked. It's, come on, folks, wake up. See what they're doing to you, See what they're doing. Well, you don't have to wake up. I would suggest you do. It's quite a good place to be. So that's the moon landings. Let's move on, because you know so much about so much, Guy.
I wouldn't go that far. I think, in the words of Marcus Aurelius, all I truly know for certain is that I know nothing at all. It's funny you talking about there the genocide, the famine that's taken place, where they have culled millions of people, and that is one of the most saddening aspects of Tartaria. The number of 3.35 billion people wiped out in 100 years.
Right. Let's talk about it from a perspective as if I know nothing about. I mean, I vaguely, really don't know a lot. Can you explain to us, Guy, what is Tartaria? What is it?
Yeah, so basically the term is a landmass. It is just an area of land. We're talking pretty much most of the northern hemisphere, but traditionally it is Eurasia, Russia, Asia, Eastern Europe, going into Western Europe, but an ethos that travelled. Some people refer to it as the millennial reign of Christ, a 1,000-year period where we built these incredible structures, cathedrals, for example, world's fairs, palaces, buildings that have these copper domes on the roofs. Um, and I can go into those in more detail if you want me to. So a 1,000-year period that they refer to as Tartaria, but a lot of people consider it to be the millennial reign of Christ. And that ended in 1776, and we entered New World Order, which in biblical terms is Satan's little season. And that's another whole rabbit hole altogether. But what I've come to realize, and I put myself out on a limb really when I first said this, the millennial reign of Christ, I don't believe was a period where Jesus and the saints built these structures and ruled over the realm. I believe it was the millennial reign of Christos, of living in a higher vibration, in a much higher frequency, and therefore we could manifest things collectively. We could do anything, and I think that is what we're referring to. Now, to understand sort of Tartaria and the timeline involved, we need to look at the work of a Russian professor who's still with us now, who first put Tartaria into print, and his name's Anatoly Fomenko. And he wrote a book called New Chronology. And he suggests that 800 years of our timeline have been falsified, they've been added, that literally nothing happened between 1776 and 976. Nothing happened at all, therefore making the year 1776 actually 976 CE or AD. The period of time for Tartaria started in 45 BC or 45 BCE, ended in 1776, which is 976. That is 1,000 years. And the reason it started in 25 BCE is that is if you align Jesus, the birth of Jesus with King Herod if King Herod is to be part of this story, then it would have had to have been 25 BC when the events took place that Herod described. And people aren't that sure exactly when he died, but most people that have researched, sorry, when he was born, but most people that have researched it fully estimate if he did exist at all, it was 25 BC or BCE. So we have a 1,000-year period where these incredible structures were built, where we worked with cymatics, we were using telluric energy, we were harnessing energy from the ether. And the best way to describe it would be kind of like an echo of Atlantis. That's what Tartaria was. And every ruler within it, from King Solomon to Genghis Khan to Queen Jennifer, who Padme is based upon, the Star Wars character that married what became Darth Vader, Anakin Skywalker. It's been in plain sight. She was actually murdered by the Russians in the 40s. People can find photographs online of her being shot in the back while she was pregnant. That was the last queen. So they inverted the rulers from the first one. They believe we're going back to Gog Magog. We're talking about King Solomon. It can be traced to Gilgamesh, but the most, I suppose, significant in more recent times would be Genghis Khan. And there is a connection to him and Jesus as well, which is quite strange. But Genghis Khan, his whole history is a complete, yet another inversion. And the person that got rid of most of Tartaria was Napoleon Bonaparte, or at least that's the character that was given the label of the Tartarian destroyer. I don't personally believe he actually existed at all, but that's really what we're talking about. An empire that ran for 1,000 years, that echoed across the world, that shared sacred geometry, an understanding of cymatics and frequency, and people lived in a higher, much higher vibration, with also a higher level of oxygen in our atmosphere.
Wow, yes. Yes, I did a wonderful podcast the other day with a chap called Cal, and he was talking physically how the how like our stratosphere is changed, that the frequency of it is lower now than it has been. I can't do this justice. I'm just a humble podcast, so I try to get my head around these, such terms. That's why I get people on that know more about it. But I definitely feel now we're in the Sodom and Gomorrah phase of, Rome is on its last legs. I mean, we're not really. You look at Jerry Springer. We really are not far from people marrying horses, are we?
No, yeah, you're right.
And thinking that's fine. And when you look at there's so many flags for me in society. I don't want to say them because they'll apply probably to the way a lot of people are living. But I look at the way people, is the notion we ritually sacrifice to give it its proper description, including fish, something like 30 trillion animals a year that go to their death absolutely terrified, pissing and shitting themselves as they watch the one in front get it, knowing that they're going to be, think of the energy that comes off that. Think of the energy of having a species that will eat those animals without even paying them an iota of a thought. And it's not a lecture here, friends. I'm highlighting things that I never thought of this stuff before, and the darkness that we are all a manifestation of the divine. That's what we are. God created us in our image. We're a holographic representation of the divine. So Guy is me and I'm Guy. We're just having subjective experiences here. This the That man was given dominion over the animals, so a duty of care over the beasts and the birds, and I totally believe we're at such a point in the inversion where the dark overlords are just rubbing their hands together. This, and then when you look at again, I've just got to say this. Look at how much people are into their carnal self now. The Instagram, the how many more tattoos can I get? Can I get? Have you realised it don't matter how many tattoos you get, you're exactly the same person when you've had your 50 of tattoos. Yeah, exactly.
I was a tattoo artist.
Yeah. And, the same. I love don't get me wrong, Guy, I love the artist. I'm ex-Marine, so part of the Navy. I love when I'm in Japan, that's the kind of stuff I want to be like looking at, fascinated by it. It's not a judgment call in any way. I'm just saying, from God up there sitting on his throne, or God sat next to Satan going, oh, how's this? They're eating their popcorn. It's not going very well, this human experience, is it?
No.
It's more mental health, more drugs, more people waking up with chronic depression and anxiety and going to a job that they're like, what the have I got to do this the rest of me? And I do think Rome will fall and then it will come again, but it will only come again through the guides, as it were, of a spiritually enlightened going forward. However that will be, however that will come around, I've got no idea. So it's fascinating what you say, that there was this civilization that clearly must have known this stuff, clearly must have known energy, vibration, and frequency, same as the pyramids, whatever that culture was, Egyptian or what there's people out there that have had this knowledge. And they're no longer here.
And that's what was handed down. It was the Aryans, which is lordly or priestly, depending on which translation you look at. They were the ones that brought this knowledge from Atlantis, and they became the Slavic Aryans, which were really the Tartarian people. That's who shared this knowledge, and it was connected to Freemasonry. Because Hiram Abiff, the first master mason, the first grand master who started Freemasonry, he had this information. It had been handed to him. A little bit like in the same way that Plato was handed information by elders that shared with him what couldn't be shared to the masses. It was the same thing. So during the Second World War, that's what they were looking for. That's why they were going out the Germans were going out and measuring skulls. The SS were measuring children's skulls to see if there was a difference. They were looking for this Aryan race. It wasn't because they wanted to repopulate the world with Aryans. They were looking for people that held the information within their very DNA. How can we replicate what came before? We know that memory is stored within DNA, just like a computer chip, just like what we have inside our mobile phones and our laptops. We're carrying all of this information, way much more than people realize. And up until the point of our conception, that is passed on by our father, and when we're born, we're carrying the information from our mother. And if your ancestry goes back generations, let's say thousands of years, then our collective memory, the information we're carrying, is incredible. And that is what the SS were looking into. Can we get these people? Can we find these Aryans and get this information? Because they were very much into occulted knowledge, weren't they? They were looking at sacred geometry. I mean, Himmler had more occulted books than anybody else in the world at the time. And that's what they were trying to do, but not to benefit us, so we all once again have free energy and everybody's living in a higher vibration. I think that this was to be weaponized, that they wanted this technology so it could be used against us, it could be used against other countries, other empires, and if there is a life out there apart from us, to be used against them too. So I think they took something that was designed to, because the Tartarians could modify the weather. They took all of these things and turned them against us. And I think that that's also where Nikola Tesla comes into it. You know, what became known as the death ray was originally something he was trying to sell to every country in the world, that was a force field that protected everybody to the extent where war became pointless, because everybody had it. Every country had this kind of force field around them, and therefore going to war with somebody else was complete, nonsensical, because it wouldn't have achieved anything. And they switched that and called it the death ray, where it was the complete opposite. So I think it is, like you've mentioned a couple of times, it's the inversion of what's happened. And that seems to be still going on very much today. Absolutely everything has been inverted. And going out on a limb here, having studied Gnosticism for some time, and I was ordained a very long time ago. I believe that that is what is the case with the Old Testament. I think that the gods in there, or gods, I think we're talking about the demiurge. I think they've played a trick on us, and they've got us worshipping their god, not the creator, not the source. And I think we have been played from every single angle possible, and you've got to hand it to them, Chris. They've done one hell of a job.
It's fascinating, mate. I mean, you when you mention the death ray, the super laser that protects us all, well, that's actually called spirituality. I'm sorry to use a label, but what the definition of enlightenment is when once you realize that we are all a cosmic manifestation of the divine. So you're me, guy, and I'm you. We're just the all experiencing life subjectively through, you're doing it through that meat suit, I'm doing it, but we're the same energy. This is why in scripture it says thou shalt not kill. That's not a moral like goody goody, hey, don't hurt me. It's not about that. It's because if you kill or if you blaspheme, what you're doing is, if you kill, you're killing God, because you're God guy. And so am I. We're a divine manifestation. So the notion of killing another life force shows you blatantly have no clue who you are. That's the inversion we're in now. That's why war is so popular, and the kids love it. They play games about it, and they go off and join the military, thinking that they're going to be a hero, going killing other people's kids. It's total satanic inversion. The blasphemy is the same thing. When you go, oh God, what are you doing? You're taking your divinity and you're throwing it outside of you and saying that, hey, I'm just a poor, humble nobody that can do nothing. It's you up there. And so this lot, they love it. But the question is, who are they? I mean, I talk a lot about Sabbatean Frankism on my show. Sabbatai Zevi, the new Messiah, the mass following in Judaism, and they all converted to Islam eventually because they were so bad. They got threatened, or he got threatened, had to change his ways, which they did on the surface, but of course, below the surface they stayed the same satanic cult. And we talk about how the Rothschild banking family came in with the money, and how the Adam Weishaupt came in with his Illuminati, and they said, right, Illuminati, you're going to go and infiltrate all the lodges, all right? Which then become, trade unions as well. All of those societies we are going to control. Church being an obvious one. And then the Sabbateans, you're going to debaucherize society through the agenda, Hollywood, music industry. You know, you're going to get Sam Smith up there with his horns on and his hot pants and his Teletubby boots. And these fucking idiots out there will be so brainwashed, they won't even put two and two together and make the pedo connection there. In fact, they'll actually take their kids to watch him in concert, right? This is the inversion that... And the Rothschilds said we'll fund it all, and we'll not just fund it, but we'll keep everybody in debt-based slavery with our usury practices. And this is what I think we're up against. And I think the reason why they go down this route when you and I will go the Enlightenment route, peace, love, kindness and empathy, is I don't think genetically they can experience love.
You're exactly right.
You know? I think they're reptilian in that kind of, that cold-blooded, well, if you can't pick up a baby and love it, that's that idea out the window. Let's go and be really evil and we'll get our kicks that way.
Yeah. I totally agree. My microphone just fell out. I'm sorry. I totally agree with you. And this seems to have been going on a long time. Can you hear me okay, Chris?
Yeah, I can, mate.
Yeah. I think that was demonstrated to us when Diana and Charles got engaged. I don't know if people can remember it, but they asked Diana what was it like to be in love, and she was head over heels. She was really excited. And then they asked Charles, and he said, whatever love is. You know, they can't. And I think that they need us for creativity. I don't think they can do anything that involves passion of any sort because they are so low vibrational. And I think that's the difference between them and us, that we are much... We have this connection that they don't have. I don't think they are the same species as us. Now, I did some digging into Tony Blair because if you cast your mind back to when he became Prime Minister, there was a bit of a smear campaign going on, and the posters of him started appearing everywhere that had devil's eyes. So I did a bit of digging into this, and there's an MI5 document. I can't remember the name of it, but it actually makes a reference to him being referred to as the Antichrist on numerous occasions. He also makes his own reference to it in his memoirs. So I did a bit of digging, and the third Antichrist is supposed to appear on the banks of the River Nile at a particular moment. And at exactly that moment, he and Cherie Blair purchased land on the banks of the River Nile and were seen there. So I thought, okay, let's do a bit more digging. And I found a file, and then somebody sent me some information that they didn't want to be attached to. I get sent quite a lot of things that people want to, they want me to put it out there, but they don't want to be part of it. They don't want their name mentioned. I'm sure you get this too. They said that Tony Blair isn't Tony Blair, he's a Rothschild, and that his whole ancestry, his whole backstory is fake, even his date of birth. And they'd gone on and they'd started interrogating an AI system. And in the end, this system said that he doesn't have the same blood type as you and I. What blood type does he have? It's alien. Are you saying that Tony Blair is not a human being like the rest of us? Yes, that is exactly what I'm saying.
Could it also just be the years of inbreeding, though?
I mean,
this lot, they keep their money in their bloodlines, don't they? And this is why, this is why you see a certain contingent out there. They always have the little piggy glasses.
Yes.
There's
Yeah.
two guys who are wearing glasses, um, but this is the years of inbreeding, either through piousness, which accounts for some of it. That's like my family are so religious. We're more so we're my son and daughter are going to get married to keep our religiousness in the family. But then, of course, there's also the inbreeding to keep the money, to keep the wealth in the bloodlines. So I think that's actually scientifically been proven that causes a genetic mind deficiency.
Yeah. The Habsburgs are a good example of that.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, you.
Yeah. And Cleopatra married two of her brothers. They've been doing this for a long time, and now they seem to farm out the womb. But then very shortly after that, they're divorced. So it's almost as if they are literally marrying a womb to reduce the effects of inbreeding.
Yeah, like
But
a
but for
like
sorry, Chris.
a breeding mare, like Diana.
Yeah, exactly. And I was looking into the Rothschilds funding the Napoleonic Wars because that's a key part of Tartaria. That those wars were used to destroy architecture and get the Tartarians to fight against each other. They were even wearing the same uniform, flying the same banners, and literally killing each other. And it was a brilliant way to reduce the population to have a civil war and get people to fight themselves while they sit back and watch. And the bailout for it was the financing coming obviously from the Rothschilds. Um, they go to the monarchy and say that we will finance this. You're running out of money, you're going to lose. And I think at a point where actually that wasn't the case, and their repayment terms weren't based upon an interest rate. Their repayment terms were based upon them ceding the heir to the throne from that point on, and starting with Queen Victoria, who has ironically those piggy little eyes you're talking about that we see with all of them. We see it with Charles, we see it with William. We don't see it with Harry, but we see that those same eyes um, present. The same sort of shape of face with and skull shape. We have that from Queen Victoria up until right now. And I don't think William is going to be any different. They even believe that Churchill was a Rothschild, that Adolf was one too, that the Rothschilds have basically seeded every world leader as well as every monarch, since the time of the Napoleonic Wars.
Are you familiar with the notion that Churchill really wasn't a very nice person?
I think he was a vile piece of shit.
Yeah, I mention it because obviously I come from a military background, and in the vast majority would literally worship the ground he walked
Mm.
on, and you would if you just believed your official narratives. But when you look a bit deeper, and when you look at what the Austrian painter was doing, rebuilding his country back up from Sodom and Gomorrah, what they'd done to it, utilizing the trade unions and the lodges to literally rip the heart out of that country and pull the rug from underneath them in the First World War. And then I think it even went as far as he locked up one of the Rothschilds, put him under house arrest. At which point, I think they just got onto London, who they control through the financial industry, and said, right, we're, or is it that the gameplay's so clever that the Austrian painter was on board, or not even on board? They just could see this guy coming. They knew what his buttons were and what he was going to do in that situation, and they said, bring it on. Maybe either way, whatever the result of this conflict, we're going to be quids in the bank anyway, because we're funding all the sides and we're betting on the stock market at the same time. Yes, it's everything's an inversion, so I don't see
Absolutely.
why recent history would be any different.
Have you looked into the Society of the Elect?
Of the elect.
Yeah, the Society of the Elect. It was founded by Sir Cecil Rhodes, and I use the word "Sir" very loosely because I would never refer to somebody as Sir if they'd been knighted. If I met Jimmy Savile's friend Keir, I certainly wouldn't address him as Sir, and I wouldn't address Charles as King. These titles mean nothing to me. They don't deserve any of them, and these are just friends giving each other a bit more glamour in exchange for services that, in my opinion, were best performed by Jimmy Savile for the realm. So I use the term "Sir" very lightly, but the Society of the Elect was backed by the Rothschilds, and they didn't want Germany becoming a superpower. And so they started this smear campaign of propaganda, blaming them for all sorts of things, even sinking a Japanese boat. Lots of other events took place. And that was the beginning of the First World War. It was caused by the British Empire targeting Germany because people believed that Germany was still running as a Tartarian civilization. They had buildings still pulling energy from the ether. They were more technologically advanced. They were working with certain Aryan priests that had this knowledge, and they were looking for more Aryans to help them rebuild this kind of civilization. So the Society of the Lex formed, and they go out there to start World War I, and obviously that ended with Germany really suffering to a point where every supply line's cut off. Bank interest rates are through the hand of the Rothschilds. They had crippled the economy. People were starving, and they'd started building camps where people that were homeless and people that literally were dying from malnutrition could go into these camps and be fed and back up and running, taught a skill. And obviously their health is improved through various means and so on. And the camps obviously then became labelled as something else, and so we're told used for different reasons. And I'm not sort of saying that did or didn't take place. I wasn't there,
I think there's
but
enough evidence out there now to severely question the Second World War narrative. It's, I think you'd be crazy not to.
yeah, I mean, I've looked at the bombings that took place, the Blitz in London, and I looked at exactly where that took place. That mainly the East End. Now, people will say, well, of course they hit the East End because that's where the docks were, the shipping going in and out, so the supply chain needed to be interrupted. No, they bombed the East End of London. They bombed a specific area that three Jewish fellas, one was called Goldfinger, the other one Abercrombie, the other one I forget the name of. They had been petitioning to literally flatten the East End for some time and build tower blocks, council houses, and so on. And it had been rejected. The people wouldn't budge. Nobody wanted to know. It was exactly that area that was hit during the Blitz. So I wondered whether or not even either the Germans were told where they could and couldn't hit, and likewise so were the Allies, or whether we dropped those ourselves. Because if someone put a gun to my head, or sorry, put a gun to my children's heads and said, you're now going to fly that plane and spray the sky, or you're now going to fly that plane and drop a bomb. If you've got a gun to my kid's head, I'm going to do whatever I'm told to do.
Yes, that takes me back to the Churchill thing because apparently there was a Luftwaffe bombing raid to London where they were focused on for example, the shipping or the railway, services, not people. And that's the other side, isn't it? When you look at these speeches that are being translated of the painter, and he really just sounds like a really good guy. That just absolutely loves his country. What have we got here? We got Keir Starmer, and people think we're better than them. Are you mental? They had a guy that loved his country so much he fought in the trenches for it, saw what the cabal did was pull the rug out from under the soldiers' feet. He saw the debauchery going on in that country, that people would go there to live out their sexual perversions because the rate of interest was so high. People were starving. So they had to do anything they could and he saw all of this. And then within a short period, he turned it all around, turned it all around. And I've never seen it, I've never actually seen any evidence of this evil, cruel monster. And that which is put forward, you only got to do a little bit of digging and listen to the likes of David Irving, probably one of the greatest living historians. I believe he's still alive. I would like to have a chat with him. To see that that stuff that's what Hollywood told you. That's what Hollywood told you. And what happened is one of these bombing raids where they were trying to hit services, apparently they missed the target, and the bombs were dropped, for example, on the East End of London, accidentally. And then Churchill went, "That's it. That's because apparently he was quite evil." I don't know. I shouldn't be slagging off a dead man, I suppose, but in fairness, it is quite a serious subject, getting our children's futures right. But apparently, that was the cue they were looking for to then start civilian bombing in Germany. And if you think about it, it's all a satanic inversion. They energy harvest. That's what they want: death and destruction. They don't want people knowing that you're me and I'm you, that we are the divine. They don't want that because of this years of inbreeding, that they can't experience that. So
he did some pretty amazing things as well. I mean, I'm not, it is difficult, isn't it? It's a very difficult conversation to have when we bring up the painter. On different podcasts over the years, I've referred to him as the former Chancellor of Germany, because you don't know what it's going to trigger, do you? If it's going to hit an algorithm and have, restrictions put in place or a ban or even lose your channel completely. But, if we look at what was going on there, and I did write about it in my first book, it's completely different to what we've been told. He introduced a system where, because they were trying to rebuild the population, that if you had one child, you paid 25% less to rent or buy a property, 50% less if you had two children, 75% less if you had three or more. That's someone that appears to be trying to rebuild civilization, at not the expense of the public, which is normally what would happen here, where it would be through taxation, higher taxation. He kicks the Rothschilds out because of their interest rates, and they're crippling the economy. And then, as a direct result of what ultimately took place, the Rothschilds end up with Israel through the Balfour Declaration. The Rothschilds were the only people that won. They supplied both sides of didn't they? They financed both sides, and then end up with Israel at the end of it. And then we've got this narrative, and I do talk about it, and I'm not denying a Holocaust took place. I wasn't there. I think now people do official records have changed, where they say we don't believe it was that many people that we're talking about. So even that's gone out the window a little bit. And I was recently sort of attacked by someone for verbally for talking about this, and so I wanted to make it very clear. My mum's Jewish. I don't have an agenda. I just want the truth, and it doesn't matter to me whether I'm right or wrong. I would rather somebody comes out and corrects me. I don't have an ego attached to this. If I'm wrong, then if someone can prove that, then great. If I'm right, if someone can prove that, great. I'm not going to lose any sleep over it either way. I would rather know the truth than carry on believing a lie.
They're coming from a perspective of emotion.
Yes.
Based on their interpretation of life that they've picked up from the mainstream media. Well, we know who owns the mainstream media. It's like someone trying to argue the whole medical shit with you now, you're like, fuck me, have you been asleep, dude? Like, literally, whereas when you listen to respected historians on the Second World War that just say this physically could not have there's no records for it. There's literally, we're supposed to believe this huge thing, whether it's this, that, bombing a it's not how it happened. So, yeah, I just want to say that because you don't have to defend yourself. I think now more and more people are starting to do the mathematics on things and think, do you know what? This doesn't pan out, does it? This literally to process these figures that they're coming out with, you'd need like the manpower of a country the size of fucking Belgium or something. You're talking an apparatus of millions of people, and that's just simply not the case. And
they would still be doing it now to get to the numbers that we're given. The millions of people involved,
and
they would
and
still be doing it now.
The Red Cross were there in the war the whole time. They got no records of all this. I think what's happened is, the special people have just been used and abused, and they're too damaged to realise we're all being played, and they particularly form a function, because if you can get them into the victim role, then you can create a phony state in the Middle East based off a misinterpretation of scripture, because scripture's enlightenment. It's nothing about, milk and honey, serotonin, DMT. It's not a fucking place you can go to. So all of that's complete myth. But first you steal the spirit from people so they don't know these things. They don't develop gnosis and know, right, so crossing the Red Sea, that's an allegory for enlightening your spiritual self. Right, I get that. Okay, bread is spiritual sustenance. Fish, that means wisdom. So bread and fish. Right, I get this now. I thought it was all that fucking phony shit they told me at church that I used to get bored to shit with, right? So here's what they've done. They've taken that away from people. They've indoctrinated them through the religious system. There's a invisible prison. On the back of that, they've got everyone thinking that this place that it never was supposed to have existed actually is a place there, and that if you can get this whole victim thing going, then they have a right to that home there. And off the back of that, then all the satanic Kabbalists, the fakers, the usurers, the money, look at who was behind those events in New York and Washington 20 years. It's not hard to see this dark network. Look who owns the medical companies. This isn't rocket science. Look who put it out through their media. It's a certain specific type of individual, and they network with their own really, 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 really well. Off the back of it, they've layered religion onto it, Judaism, for example, just to fucking confuse it all. If you want to do crime, you want to do it in plain sight. And so once you understand that's what they've done, that's how they've set up the New World Order, then of course these narratives are not fucking true. Of course, you'd be stupid to put, you'd be better off believing in Father Chris. Well, actually, from a Christos point of view, you should believe in Father Christmas. Even that we've been lied to about. So can we come on to that though? So Guy, very quickly, I became enlightened before I was awake, which is an unusual occurrence. And all it simply was is I was dying of chronic addiction and I couldn't get any lower. And in one point, at my lowest point, I think they call it an ego death. I realised I was just fucking everything up. I was trying to control my life and everything and using substances to balance my mood. And It just was not working. And in that moment, I decided to do three things. I talk about this a lot because it's just the key to life. I healed the past and I left it behind. Fuck it. Stop going on about it. Stop thinking about it. It happened. Are you here? Yeah, you are. Good. Move forward. I become grateful. I thought, do I want this life or not? You know, if I had a choice, this life or not have it, yeah, I'd have it. I think it's pretty freaking amazing, isn't it? You know, so leave the past behind. Be grateful. Oh yeah, take action. I didn't know that, unbeknown to me, when you take action, you're raising your vibration and life meets you there. Then you helps you take more action in life. And before you know it, you're literally living in paradise, which is where I live every day. Have done now since 1997, 98, I believe it was. So that was that. When I woke up the next day, rather than, I was on a come down, rather than like roll over on this shitty sofa bed I used to live on and just sleep and you know, sleep my emaciated body, only waking up to eat the food that I had to shoplift. You know, it was a very dark existence. But I woke up the next day and something inside me said, get up. I jumped up. I threw open the curtains. I said, good morning, life. Thank you so much for having me here. I appreciate it. I thought, do you know what? I'll go and make a cup of tea. No drugs, no nothing, no preparing needles and all this fucking stuff. Just going to go and have an English cup of tea. And as I turned to go and make it, my life changed. Some people out there will know what I'm talking about. The light, I'd filled with the light. I was no longer in victim consciousness. I do to life because I'm the universe. I'm the divine. Life doesn't do to me anymore. And that was it. I knew I was no longer alone. I knew that there was something there. I I just knew everything was gonna be all right forever. And that was it, right? And then I went along. I was still like pretty naive and brainwashed like everybody else. And I started going through university, and I was a bit of a, like, you know, model soldier for university, you know, all that kind of thing. And then my lecturer guy, he said one day, we were just having a chat at lunchtime around the table, and he's like, has anyone seen that video from the Pentagon? This was in the early days of the internet where you had a dial-up modem. People out there now were like, what's a dial-up modem?
Yeah.
Well, think of the worst fucking noise in your ears. That's a dial-up modem. And so I went home. I got on my Pentium 386. Waited, 45 minutes for it to heat up and crank up, and managed to get on this thing called the internet. Didn't even have Google and such things back then, I don't think. Anyway, I types in Pentagon missile. Oh my God, these images started coming. I was like, they didn't show us this on the telly. They didn't. And then when I learned about a certain structure that may or may not have the number 7 attached to it, there was no you'd have to be a fucking idiot to believe that story. There were no going back. And that was my awakening. So I've done it ass about tit.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I wasn't, I'm not saying I was born awake, but I was born in a house that questioned. But, my dad, we don't have the best relationship. I haven't seen him in, I don't know how long, over a decade since I last saw him. We communicate via WhatsApp occasionally. That's about it. He lives in Tenerife, and I just don't see him. And my kids don't speak to me either. My wife doesn't like him. He's a very, very hard person to get on with, but he also happens to be the most intelligent person I've ever met. and I sometimes resent him for that. But that's who fathered me. So here we are. But I didn't actually I didn't actually start appreciating things until after the pandemic. That was for me not when I woke up, but that was when I had a better understanding of my place in the world, of being part of something far bigger than me, and also that the feeling that also that I'm insignificant in the great scheme of things. And this was the pandemic, because before that, I had a really successful tattoo studio. I trained as an art. Well, I started training as an architect, switched to graphic design, then studied fine art. I was in marketing for years, designing ultimately the back cover of a magazine called Max Power. I then went on to do Fast Car, Revs, Redline, all the car magazines, and I worked on a show called Pimp My Ride. So that's what I did: automotive industry, design and marketing, creativity. Um, and I started designing tattoos for myself and friends, and then got offered the opportunity to learn to tattoo properly by a master for a year. And 10 years later, I've got my own studio. I'm now writing for a tattoo magazine. I'm on a TV show that turned into Tattoo Fixers with a girl called Charlotte Crosby from Geordie Shore. We're presenting this together. And my ego was significant. It was into the stratosphere. I thought I could walk, literally, I thought I could walk on water. And then the pandemic hit. And for 9 months, I did nothing. And, I was struggling financially. We had to freeze the mortgage, car had to go back. Um, and I lost three people from my studio that really helped pay for everything. One joined the prison service. One moved to Manchester to go and live back with their parents because they had no money, and another one quit altogether and started doing accountancy work for their boyfriend who owned a building company. So my team of seven people, when I got back, was myself and my wife who ran the studio, an apprentice, and a piercer. Wasn't enough to keep this big studio going. And I woke up one morning and realized that my business had shrunk. Half of my customers I'd lost because for 9 months they couldn't get tattooed, so they'd moved on to other things. So my database had shrunk dramatically. I'd been posting about the pandemic and the vaccines, so I'd been banned from Facebook and lost all of my followers. And I woke up one morning with nothing. I had my family, I had a roof over my head, but I had and some food in the cupboard, but I had nothing at all. And I realized how quickly things can be taken away from you, and that what goes up inevitably comes back down again. And to be more grateful. And it taught me perhaps the most important lesson of my life, and that is to remain humble. And I was actually shot down for that. I did a talk on on human cloning. I do two talks. I travel quite a lot, and I talk about Tartaria and I talk about human cloning, which I've studied for a lot longer. And they introduced me as this person who has millions of views on TikTok, and the following's huge, and people all over the world are reading his books and blah 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 and all this stuff. But he won't tell you any of that. In fact, you'll never hear him say anything about himself ever. And if he won the Nobel Peace Prize for his work in spreading the truth, he wouldn't even post that he'd got it on Facebook. Guy Anderson. I was like, bloody hell. And he said, you are, mate. You're a nightmare. Doesn't matter what anybody says to you, you thank them. Oh, I read your book the other day. Thank you so much. Thank you for supporting me. I really appreciate your support. He said, why are you like that? I said, because I know what it's like to have it all and then wake up one morning with nothing. And I'll never, ever be ungrateful or take that for granted again. So it's one hell of a leveler, isn't it? When you sort of suddenly have that moment.
Yes, it is. Absolutely. Absolutely. It's a funny one as well. A lot of people, they mean it kindly, but they say, oh, Chris, you've turned your life around. I can't really explain to someone who sees the world in that perspective, that linear progression type thing, that no, you come and meet my boy, you'll know my life's been perfect and that I've played everything right, albeit unknown to me. It's I couldn't have everything that I've got. I just got back from Slovakia, bored in with my son. He's 10. He's a little legend. Tomorrow I'm off to the art. Take a group of novices, wonderful bunch of gentlemen, up to the Arctic Circle to teach them skiing and survival. I get back from that and then I'm off to summit Mount Everest. This is
Wow.
all just materialistic, stuffy. But what I'm saying is, tell me how I've lived my life wrong again. I think I've played a fucking blinder, especially coming from the childhood that I had. Guy, let me ask you, because like I say, tattoo's always been a fascination for me. I think the reason I never went any further than one, in fact, I actually had a tattoo removed, so I've had two. I had one of those silly ink ones you do at school on your hand.
Yeah.
And then, because in the Marines, healthcare's free, I just asked the Marines, the Navy doctors, could you get rid of it? And they operated on me, and under local anaesthetic, they just took it out and sewed it up, right? But probably the biggest reason I never went more whole hog, so to speak, is that I do look at a lot of tattoos, especially at the moment, because they're everywhere, aren't they? And I do think, fuck me, that shit. I'm just being honest. I very rarely see what I call a cool tattoo. And when you do, you almost feel like going up to the person saying, mate, that is good artwork. I like this, a lot of the sort of black stuff, the almost look a bit gothicy kind of sleeves can look really amazing. So what I wanted to say is a few things. The Tattoo Fixers program, I've just been showing it on the screen. I did think that the fixing that they done would look more shit than the tattoo that they had already. Am I allowed to say that?
Yeah, because that's an interesting story. They didn't do the work. So it's fake. That program is fake. I worked on a program called Tattoo Disasters,
Ah, okay.
which was on Channel 5. And then the people that created that, they're approached by Channel 4. And what they did was they you applied to go on the show. They would tattoo you, put this crappy tattoo on you. They'd give you a script and you'd read it out saying, well, I had this done in Benidorm, I was drunk, blah, blah, blah. And then you would actually go somewhere else to get the work done, and they would pretend that it was being done by the people on the show. And it got to the point where it was so bad. I used to tattoo at a lot of exhibitions and competed in Europe, um, and they were at the Great British Tattoo Show, which used to be at Ali Pali every May. They were having the cast, the tattoo artists from Tattoo Fixers, coming on a stand. Pride of place. Everybody turned around and said, "We will boycott if they're there. These are fake tattoo artists." And I was getting lots of messages from people saying, "What are your thoughts on attending a show where these guys are going to be?" And a couple of people have said, "Bloody hell, whatever you do, don't put them on a stand next to Guy because he'll take their heads off because they're everything this isn't about." And that's the problem. And so we kind of ended up with this fake program. But what that did was it gave people too high an expectation. So if you've got a tattoo the size of a postage stamp and you want it covered up by something else, the real skill is covering it up with something that isn't that much bigger. What's very easy to do is covering it up with something that's 10 times the size, so you can lose it in a bit of shading. And that is what the program did. You would have a tiny little tattoo and they'd cover it up with something enormous. So people started coming into tattoo studios saying, I've got this little tattoo here and I want it covered up with this. And they'd show you something that was impossible to use to hide a black blob. So it increased people's expectations of what was possible because the whole program was fake. So, yeah, it didn't do us much of a service.
Yes. So when you're learning, I always sort of assumed you'd practice on meat, like a joint of meat or something. Is that the truth, or?
Yeah, kind of. I mean, you practice on what I consider to be a human hybrid, pig skin. The pig, from as far as and I've researched this quite extensively, the pig is a hybrid of a human,
Mm.
and the skin is almost identical. It's used in skin grafts. So yeah, you practice on pig skin, and but these days you can buy sheets of latex and you practice on those instead. But back in the day, we would use pig skin, and for a bit of fun, every now and again, you'd tattoo a lemon or a grapefruit or something like that, and then you can put it on your mantelpiece, and it dries out. You've still got this really cool piece of art. You can't really do that with pig skin. Um, so yeah, we worked on the closest thing to human skin, which was pig skin.
We come back to that thing again, haven't we, about the whole killing animals thing? The reason I really feel it's such a is this carnivore diet now is like massively taking off, and this is not a judgment at all. It's just an observation, but it seems to be for people that pick it up, people that are missing something in their life. They're missing what we've been talking about. And it's a lot easier, rather than just eat vegetables and be, pH balance and never get ill. Very simple solution in life. By veg, I don't mean, an abundance of carbohydrate, because that, most vegans die the same as carnivores. It's because they think that because they're having baked beans and jacket potatoes and chips and pasta, that is somehow a good way to go. And of course it's not. They're literally destroying themselves. So it's like with carnivore diet, of course you're going to see gains because you're taking the carbohydrate contingent out of your diet. But meat is still the second most acid producing food. It's literally on a scale of 1 to 5. It's the fourth one. Shellfish, believe it or not, is even worse. I absolutely used to love shellfish. But what I think's been done here is I really do think these are little satanic inversions that are being put in there to get people to literally live totally unconsciously as to what are they actually doing. That pig is an animal that's just like a human.
Dangerously.
That chicken, that could be your pet Polly. You'd never do. And again, Guy, I'm not trying to sound like people can live any way they want. I totally accept that. However, this is my show, and we do talk about shit. Do you know what I mean? And we talk about some stuff that really helps a lot of people. And this is the way my mind works, is by grappling with, and I know yours does too, grappling with these complex kind of scenarios that we find ourselves in, and saying, well, look, when you look at it from a perspective of energy, vibration and frequency, i.e., is it a satanic ritual that you're participating in that you're not even aware of? It's like the music industry. Music industry is designed to keep you in your lower bestial self. That's why it's all these fucking soppy love songs about your boyfriend's left you, or your girlfriend don't love you no more, she's run off with your mate. Why? They don't want you to know that you're infinitely loved from birth. because you're part of the divine cosmology. That you don't need to look for. You don't need a partner to tell you that you're God. You already are. That's what the music industry is designed to hide from people. Hollywood, it's the hero narrative. Oh, unless you've got a big gun, or you climb a mountain, or you fight in a boxing match and you get knocked down 9 times, but you get back up. You know, it's all, how many blokes now are just absolutely brainwashed by the military? You know, absolutely think. I get people message me saying that they think that they're a second-hand citizen, like a bad person, because they didn't join the military when they was a teenager. I'm like, how the fuck do you think not going and massacring other teenagers for a ruling elite who fucking despise you? How's that thinking going? So, sorry, what I'm just getting at, guys, someone's got to have these conversations, and I know there's people out there that wish that we weren't having them because it affects their life choices. But yeah, poor fucking pigs. They're supposed to be the closest thing to humans.
And they're unusual in many ways. I mean, there are certain groups of people in certain religious circles that believe that the pig is a damned soul, and that's why it can't look up. It's forced to look down. It's living in, a life that is so far away from what it once had. But it had done something bad in a previous life. It comes back as a pig. But their eyelashes, their eyes, their heart, the skin, there are lots of parts of the pig that are almost identical to ours. And the interesting thing with the pig is that it arrived 7,000 years ago from nowhere. It suddenly appears. I do believe it's a hybrid. So it's the domesticated boar. No, it's not. It isn't. It might share some DNA from the boar, but it's a completely different animal. Even the meat tastes completely different. And there are some indigenous tribes that when they see Caucasian people arrive, they'll say, look, some long pigs. Here come the pigs. And when they're asked why, they say, because you taste the same. You are the same. You pale-skinned people are pigs. You just look different. There's nothing else there. You are a pig. And that actually that is the ultimate reason why certain religious groups don't eat it, because it's cannibalism. It's not to do with it not keeping in a hot environment, because in the same countries they're eating chicken, which is, going to be just as likely as the cause of salmonella and food poisoning as pork is that hasn't been kept properly. So it's all bullshit. We have been played into eating ourselves, into eating a hybrid version of us that basically, and if you look at the Rothschilds as an example, and all of their friends, they all converted to Judaism. They're not eating pork, but they're pushing pork on us. So I think that we have been played. And with regard to eating meat, in the Bible it says that Adam is to eat from the berries, eat the vegetation, eat from the trees and the plants, but not to eat the meat. The beasts eat beasts. You're not to do that. And if we look at the Sumerian story of the Anunnaki, the first thing that they noticed about us, which scared them to death, was the fact that we were killing animals and eating them. What are these people doing, or these beings doing, eating the flesh of another animal? This is wrong. We need to stop them from doing it. So somewhere along the line, we've been told to eat 3 meals a day and to stuff ourselves full of meat. I don't think we're supposed to do it. We've been told in lots of different ways, but we're still doing it.
Yeah, the trouble is people don't know what it's like to not live like that. They think it's, you can clearly see now it's filling in a gap in dispossessed men's lives. That it's really macho, isn't it, to just eat 5 steaks a day and 8 eggs. And I've seen someone, a content producer, YouTuber the other day, very popular chap, I know him, saying, wash it down with black coffee. And it's like, oh, fuck.
Sounds like a Joe Rogan
It's
line,
like you
doesn't it?
literally wash it down with a toxic bean that grows in the jungle and it's bright red saying, "Do not eat me." And you somehow have wrapped this up as in like it's a good fucking thing, dude. You don't know. If you talk to them about this, they have no clue. No clue whatsoever. And it's like, yeah, it's fucking, like I say, not people can live however ever they want, but I totally think it's that Sodom and Gomorrah, that this is the last nail the cabal can do, is to fucking take vulnerable men and to make them believe that ritually sacrificing terrified fucking animals that have piss and shit themselves as they fucking go to the plate. Some of them are so clever, the chickens, they lift their head up when they go through the stun bath because they realise that's what's just put their matey out. And so they lift their head up and then they look and then they realise there's the chopper, there's the it it's a way I'd never thought of living at life, is this lot getting one over us on again, aren't they?
Yeah.
They're getting one over us on again, and people are too blind to see. It's a perspective. I'm not saying, what I would say to anyone, if you want peak optimal health, learn this, eat your veggies, be an ultra endurance athlete like me. Go and climb, big mountains and row across the Atlantic and live your dreams. Because I tell you what, I wouldn't go back again. Not just from a moral perspective, but from the fact, fucking hell, it makes you feel fat and bloated and ill. That lifestyle. You're never going to run slower than when you've had a takeaway the night before. Put it that way.
Oh, man, and you don't know what you're eating. There are so many people out there that believe that in the fast food chain in particular, that we are eating ourselves, that human flesh is being put into the mix. And there was a case of an FBI raid in America where this one of the larger suppliers to McDonald's had been getting bits from a local morgue, and that they had been sort of introduced into the food chain. But McDonald's swear that they weren't aware of this. The man's arrested, he gets prosecuted, he does his time. Um, and then the KFC bring out an advert where they're showing actual people being dipped into their latest sauce. And I do wonder about that. Are we actually, not just with regard to pork, but are we eating other people? Somewhere along the line,
Oh,
is it in our food chain?
well, when you look at the fat guy, clearly Sabbatean Frankism, it's going on. Look at all these
Hmm.
black cubes everywhere.
Yeah.
Look at the bull symbolism, like in the Olympics, the Commonwealth Games. They're actually worshipping a bull. It clearly goes on. So people have clearly clung to this ideology for thousands of years
Yeah.
and still implement the dark practices. Well, one of those practices, one religious practice, is a certain type of bread that traditionally had the blood of Christian children mixed into it and then fed back to the Christians. Well, that group ain't gone away. They're still out there. Why do we think that notion, that's their religious philosophy, is feed the dumb sheep, put the dumb sheep into food and then feed it back to the fuckers,
Mm.
and they'll be too stupid and to and well, if historically that's been the case, why do we think that's just stopped now?
Yeah.
You
Yeah.
know,
I totally agree.
of
I
course it's
totally
going
agree.
on.
I read something about a private chef that had worked at one of the Rothschilds' estates. I think this one was in Switzerland. I think, and he was asked what their diet was like, and he said if they've got a meeting coming up or there's a significant event where they've got to be on the ball, that they drink black coffee and their diet is solely bitter greens, no meat.
Bitter.
Greens, green veg,
Oh, okay.
leaves, leafy green veg that's
Yeah.
bitter. That is all they eat, but they do drink black coffee. But I imagine it's probably very different to what we're given, um, no matter where it came from. If it's crapped out by a cat in the Amazon, or whether or not you're using Nescafe, I imagine it's an entirely different thing. But yeah, they want to remain sharp, and so yeah, just leafy greens, bitter leafy greens is all they'll eat before a significant meeting or an event that they're attending or a deal that they're putting together. Um,
So, Guy, yes, absolutely wonderful chat. Two things I want to finish off with. One was the Christos, and one was the human cloning. So, yeah, Christos, what's your understanding of that?
well, for me, that's the fluid. That's the fluid that is literally running from our mind, our third eye down our vertebrae, and there are links with that to masturbation as well. That actually, if you can resist, that fluid can return, and that's when you're truly awakened and can meditate at a far deeper state and have a much greater connection. So I believe that the death of Christ at 33 is a reference to the death of the ego achieved by the release of Christos, the fluid in our spine. That's what I believe.
Yes. And there's so much allegorical references in culture, aren't there? For example, the Santa Claus coming down the chimney,
Yeah,
Santa Claus, colostrum being where the
yeah,
secretion is made. Yes. Um, I even saw Jim Carrey talking about it once.
yeah, yeah. He's quite outspoken, isn't he? He will go on a talk show and they're expecting a comedy routine, and all of a sudden they're hit with some profound statements and knowledge. The Truman Show is that for me, the Truman Show is his best piece of work because that clearly demonstrates. Well, I think that is Gnostic, and it's showing that at the end when he fights his fear, when he faces the fear of drowning, and of course the light that falls from the sky is Sirius, and then he climbs, he climbs those 16 steps which are reflected in the water, making 32. And then the final step through the door is the 33rd step, and he achieves enlightenment. And he's realized now that he was trapped in a fake world, that he was
Yeah.
a prisoner, and he's reached enlightenment, and he's left the prison world.
And he has to cross water to get
Yeah,
there. That's remember what I was saying about the crossing the Red Sea.
yeah. And his friend Marlon is an archon,
Yep.
and I think that the girl that's trying to help him um, to understand, the truth about what he really is um, living in is Sophia.
Yeah.
The
The divine wisdom.
yeah, which is I think the grandmother of the demiurge. Um,
Yes. I've got to do a little bit more work in that area because yeah, I sort of, I sort of get it.
but his friend Marlon always arrives with alcohol.
Yeah.
Have a beer, bit of distraction. He is an archon, Marlon, and this girl, I think she represents Sophia, and of course the interesting thing is that at the end of the film, the audience don't realise that they're also trapped living in this same world. They just change the channel.
Yeah.
They,
Exactly.
they don't think about it, yeah, and it's there, and I think that Christoph yeah, Ed Harris. It's Ed Harris, isn't it? Christoph. He is. He's representing the all-seeing eye.
Right. I don't think so. He's representing what we'd call Satan, as in he keeps tempting Truman into staying within the realms of the 3D Matrix world, isn't he?
Well, that's the part that the demiurge plays, because the demiurge truly believes that he is protecting us and that we live in this paradise. He
Yeah.
truly believes that. And this Christoph, I think, is Christoph of Christ, that he thinks that he's protecting Truman and that his world's a better place than what's beyond those walls. And he does deep down actually believe that. They're wrong, of course, but that's where I think that comes from, and so I think that that's why we see him as this all-seeing eye. It's inverted, but I do believe that. And incidentally, there are rumours that Jim Carrey was raised to the rank of 33rd degree Freemason for taking that job for
That's what I was going
starring.
to come on to. I don't know if folks who've seen the Truman Show realise the window that Christoph is looking. I'm just showing a picture of it now. That's the Masonic window. It looks like the rising sun, with the angled panes, and also in the opening sequence when he's brushing his teeth or he talks to himself in the mirror, and they got a camera looking back at him, and just there on the right hand side of the shelf, or as you look at it, is a beehive. It's like a eau de cologne or something in the shape of a beehive, and beehive is highly symbolic in Freemasonry, as in like the working for the greater good. Oh, yeah, incredible film.
Yeah.
But answer me this then, Guy. So this guy that we thought was leaving the Matrix, he was saying his weird stuff on chat shows about the Illuminati and all this. How does he then end up next to Adam Sandler at a birthday party? I'm just showing a picture now. Next to another chap, I'm not even sure who it is, but he's got the Mickey Mouse T-shirt, so MMM, which allegedly stands for Master Mason.
Yeah.
And Jim himself's got the Cult of the Black Cube, the Saturn T-shirt on.
Yeah.
Is nothing sacred?
No, and I think I think that his job was to do exactly what he's done, to actually tell us in plain sight what he's doing. But of course, everybody's laughing. It's a little bit like several actors have done this, and for the life of me, I've completely forgotten his name. It's not His name's gone, but there's one particular actor that has said on several occasions, an American actor. Um, he's always kicking around with Dwayne Johnson. Dwayne Johnson's little sidekick, Kevin Hart. Kevin
Yes.
Hart. I think Kevin Hart is handled by Dwayne Johnson. I think Dwayne Johnson's his handler. Kevin Hart has said 3 times on mainstream news that he has been cloned, that there are 3 of him. That's why he's able to appear in so many films, and he's on Twitter, and he's being interviewed on the radio, and he's in this country, then he's in that country. How do you manage to be everywhere at the same time? And all of the work that you're doing, how is it possible for one person to do that? He said, I've been cloned. There are 3 of me. And I think that was Jim Carrey's job. He was tasked with going out there and telling people in plain sight exactly what was going on. You know, the method of the method of revelation. They feel they have to tell us what they're doing, so they do it through a comedian, and so we don't take it seriously. We laugh at what he's saying, and I think that Jim Carrey reached a point where he no longer wanted to play, so he retired and walked away from it. And now he's sort of disappeared into the background, but people are now popping up things that he said a few years ago. So he may be a very different person now to what he was. It might not even be the same Jim Carrey, but I do believe that that was his role, because when you sign that deal in Hollywood, and a friend of mine was a Hollywood actor. He played in a film with Ray Liotta. He starred in a film with Ray Liotta and Ashley Judd, and he played someone who looked like exactly. It's called the. Now that's gone. I'm having terrible problems with my memory today. Not the replica, the replace. It's gone. Anyway, he's now a podcaster, and he's called Ryan Pelton. Now, he starred in this quite a big hit where he played Elvis, or someone was born looking like Elvis with a similar story. And at the end of it, he was asked that because he stumbled into this, he wasn't an actor. He had to learn to act to get the part, but they wanted him because he looks identical. Ryan Pelton, if anyone checks him out on YouTube, he looks identical. He's got quite a big following actually. He's given the opportunity to go on and become a movie star, and he is told that there are conditions attached to this, that he may be asked to do things occasionally that he might not want to do, and attend parties and gatherings with people that he might not want to spend time with, but that was part and parcel of it. And he was told by Ray Liotta exactly what that would entail, because they became very good friends, and he walked away, and he was immediately shut down. And
Is this the Elvis guy?
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. Now why can't it's not the replica, not the duplicate? It's completely gone, the film. But it's yeah. So it's Ryan Pelton. Although he called it, he used he used a fake name, a stage name, Blake. It's gone. My memory's dreadful. And that's actually why I started writing, to write everything down before I completely bloody forgot it. Um, but yeah, so Ryan Pelton is the name he goes by on YouTube. That's his real name. But he's gone back to being an Elvis impersonator, but he does it in a big way. I mean, he sings with Celine Dion and people like that, in
The
Vegas.
identical.
The identical thank you. Yeah, so he told me, he came on my show. I was a guest on his a couple of times because he was interested in Tartaria. I got him on mine, and I said, "You were a Hollywood actor. You had this massive movie with Ray Liotta and Ashley Judd, and then you disappear. What happened?" And he said, "Everything you think you know about what happens when you sign your deal with the devil in Hollywood is real, and then some. You have got no idea what you will be asked to do in exchange for fame and fortune." And I wasn't prepared to do it. I walked away.
Yes. It, yes, it is. It's a Hollywood's a weird one, isn't it? How many transgender kids do they have? I mean, I've literally never met a transgender kid in my whole life, and I'm 56 years old. Yet every other Hollywood celebrity couple, they've got a boy that wants to be a girl or a girl that wants to be a boy or something. And how many loved ones do they lose in bizarre circumstances?
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree.
It's kind
Yeah,
of, and it always seems to be that, like, they have a glowing career, they have their bite of the cherry, bite of the taste of the apple, and then it all gets taken away from them, and then the next thing is they seem to spring back. They have this second bite of the cherry, but they've clearly had to, like, sign a certain, and now they're doing the when things go bang in public spaces, they're doing the benevolent concert, and they're trolled out for their, when they got to push a medical procedure, they're out doing some advert for it, and yeah, kind of funny.
yeah. And we saw them all doing that, didn't we, during the pandemic? I mean, Idris Elba, I was so disappointed. But we know now that that's how it works. John Travolta's a good example. After Grease, and then he does a couple of other smaller films. He disappears. 5 minutes later, he's a household name all over again. And we've got the whole inversion of so many Hollywood actors. And I say, I couldn't give a shit what sexuality somebody is. It's of no interest to me unless they want to keep ramming it in my face. I'm not bothered. Whatever floats your boat. Um, but what I do find strange is that if you and I'm stereotyping here, um, but I remember I did drama at school. I didn't take it as an exam, but we all had to do it at secondary school, and I couldn't help wondering why the boys that tended to take it as an exam and wanted to go further on in acting were, in the case of the ones that I went to school with, were ones that I would consider to be slightly more feminine, and in several cases were gay. So is it possible that all of these sort of big bad men that we see in Hollywood and on the movies are actually gay? And is it possible that some of them were actually born female, and that some of the females that we see out there, like Jennifer Aniston, Sandra Bullock, were born male? Is that whole thing going on? Because it kind of represents the Baphomet kind of dual sexuality, transgender thing. And I'm not saying for one moment that there aren't people out there that truly believe they were born in the wrong body, and their sexuality that they were born with is wrong, and they change that. And I totally understand why you would do that. But when I've said to people, I think that it may well be that, for example, to give you an example, Justin Bieber, I believe, is a girl, and Miley Cyrus, I believe, is a boy. Now, what would be so hard to believe that? Why would that be so difficult to comprehend, or even consider or contemplate for a moment? And when I say that I believe, for example, Brad Pitt, I personally believe he's probably gay. And just to reiterate, doesn't bother me in the slightest. Couldn't give a shit what sexuality he is. If my boys were gay, I wouldn't love them or any more or any less than I do. Doesn't bother me. But when I say, is it possible that Brad Pitt's gay? Is it possible that Tom Cruise is gay? Are any of these a possibility? Well, no, look at them and blah blah. They're actors. First and foremost, they're actors. I think they're permanently acting, and I do think that this is all connected to some rather unpleasant sexual activities and acts of deprivation that go on within the Illuminati and Scientology circles in Hollywood.
All right, here's one for you. This is something I was just looking at the other day. I'm going to show our friends at home. This is a IMDb page, so the actors database. If I just call some names out to you, Guy, I'm going to ask you what do you think the connection is between them. I'll go for the girls. Winona Ryder, Megan Fox, Angelina Jolie, Sandra Bullock, Charlize Theron, Mila Kunis, Julia Roberts, Gwyneth Paltrow, Kate Beckinsale, Keira Knightley, and I could go on and on and on and on and on. Anything come to mind?
Well, you mentioned a few people there that are connected to think tanks like the Trilateral Commission.
No, not in. I mean, they will be,
but
yeah.
yeah, but these people I believe have clearly sold their soul, part of the club. Um, and you've mentioned people there that are connected to Epstein as well. Sandra Bullock, I believe, is a man, but I'm not totally sure about the rest of them.
If you think Epstein and you think bloodlines, then you're going to be closer to the.
Right. So they're all
they're all
related.
Jewish.
Yeah.
And not that we have any problem with people of ethnicity, faith, whatever. My question is, why does Hollywood consistently? It's like they're always trying to pull a sneaky, and it's actually been highlighted recently. If I find the highlighted recently, where there's been a furor that Jacob Elordi, the clue being in the name Jacob, has been picked to play Heathcliff. So an English classic. And when you just think like, Dustin Hoffman, Rayman, Tom Cruise and Dustin Hoffman, Midnight Cowboy, John Voight and Dustin Hoffman, and then how many times does Jonah Hill play the sidekick? And it's almost like they're gaslighting you on a false sense of like, considering they're a small percentage of society, what, as little as 1 or 2%, maybe 3 in a place like America, and yet it almost seems like every other role on TV is from someone from. I just think, and this desperateness to get them into roles, like when you think Roald Dahl, he was allegedly heavily antiseptic, right? And yet his Willy Wonka, if you look at the two last people to be cast in that role, both from a certain ethnicity, certainly not British working class. It's almost like they're doing like the softening up. Do you know what I mean? This is like a gnosis thing. You either see this and like you get it,
Well, have you seen David Beckham's now decided he's Jewish?
Oh.
Yeah, he's decided that now that he's found that that he aligns himself with the Jewish faith, and that if he was to pick a religion, then he believes he would be Jewish. And I've seen him,
His money must be running out.
I actually think he's been replaced. If you look at him now, he looks like a young Burt Reynolds. Because the David Beckham we know doesn't talk on the World Economic Forum stage.
Well, I think it's a great advert for don't fuck with your face. Because you end up
has had yes, but has he had work done? Or hasn't he? I believe a lot of the people have been replaced. A lot of people have been replaced by clones, and that they don't necessarily always get it exactly right. So the perfect opportunity would be that a time where they've had cosmetic surgery.
What about old matey that does the he's openly a Freemason. Well, he's got the Freemasonic thing on his jet ski anyway, we know that. The Simon Cowell, isn't it?
Oh, yeah.
It always looks like they've gone out and had a load of work done, and it just looks weird.
But it would be the best of the best, wouldn't it? If you think about it, it would be the very best. I mean, Simon Cowell, David Beckham, they're not going to go back street to get this done, or nip over to to Turkey to have some work done. So why does it fail so epically? I mean, and that is where I think that there is a possibility that these people have been replaced.
Are you familiar with Kali? The I think she's a Hindi deity, the goddess of.
Oh yeah, got it. Yeah, well, that's Wonder Woman, isn't it?
Yeah, always sticking her tongue out.
Yeah.
Got a red tongue. I'm just showing the advert David done for the red tongue football boots. Clearly a demonic. Why can't people see that is clearly like they're aiming at the demonic there for your children when they next buy football boots. That's.
And they had icons. Adidas had icons. Nike also brought out a range of trainers on a limited edition that had blood in the sole, a tiny drop of blood from the creative team into each sole. Sold for $666.
Nike is the swoosh, isn't it? Their
Yeah,
logo is cult of Saturn again, the
yeah,
ring of Saturn, and the and Adidas, of course, is the three and the three, the 33.
yeah. Adolf Dassler.
Yeah. Um, my favorite clothing is Adidas. So
My favourite trainers are.
yeah,
I'm still wearing gazelles.
I like Adidas for some reason. I think all this occult symbolism shit is only it's only powerful if you give power to it, isn't it? If you
Yeah, yeah,
you know.
absolutely. And if you know what it represents, you know what they're saying, then it doesn't work anymore.
Yes. Guy, listen, I could chat for another couple of hours, definitely. So why don't we do that? Why don't you come back on the show?
Yeah, I'd love to.
We'll chew over a bit of this, bit of that. Yes, absolutely. Friends at home, I haven't asked you to like and subscribe. That would be absolutely brilliant if you can. And if Guy doesn't mind, if I can just give a shout out to my upcoming Mount Everest summit. I will be off next month, I believe it is, or it will certainly be in April, to summit Mount Everest. And I'm doing so for two reasons. One is like I'm an adventurer, because I always used to say you get one life. If you live it right, one is enough. I suppose you need, if you think that one life's eternal life, really, isn't it? So kind of my thoughts have changed on that. But no, the other reason, folks, is that we lose a lot of people to suicide in the veterans community. It affects us all. We're talking people that you really love or you've developed a relationship. It might just be over Facebook that you've been yapping with one of the boys for a few years, and then suddenly his kids come home, talking toddlers, and find him hanging in the fucking garage. I'm sorry to put it so graphically, but this is what we're facing. It disproportionately affects the veterans community. And what I want to do with my Everest Summit is say, folks, in order to understand adult mental health, you need to understand complex PTSD. And complex PTSD, contrary to what Hollywood, little clue there, want you to believe, isn't something that you simply pick up on the battlefield. It's a complex, interwoven web of trauma layered for years that I would say, looking at the research, very often starts in childhood. And yet this is something that is never spoken about in military circles, ever. We lose someone, no one says fuck all about it. Everyone just carries on as though, like, oh, it's just completely normal that, Dave, who was a sergeant major, looked completely happy with the world. Took himself out the game. So I want to be saying, folks, friends, can we all consider childhood trauma and how that affects us, our adult mental health? If you can help me, as you can see, many kind people have donated. We've literally just hit 13,000. It's going to cost me, don't mean to be uncouth and talk money, but I've got to raise 40,000, and that is in addition to basically taking a year off work or a year off, doing what I do, public speaking, YouTube, whatever. So if you can chip in a $5, folks, to help me along, is what I'm trying to say. There'll be a link below in the comments or in the description box. And much, much love to everybody that has helped me. I just want to use my platform, Guy. I've got about 200,000 people now on social media, and I just want to be the guy that starts talking about this. Well, I could sit out here and shut up about it, couldn't I, and do nothing? But I figure, why not combine a Everest summit climb with talking about the thing that's killing your mates?
It's something that if anybody follows me on social media, they'll see that whenever I leave a comment behind, I use a green heart, little green heart emoji, because my wife and I, when we had the tattoo studio, we raised thousands of pounds for mental health, and the green heart represents mental health awareness, and it's something that I do now, and I came into contact with Harry, Prince Harry. We were the first people in the history of the NHS Mental Health Trust to donate money to them, believe it or not. The chief executive came to our tattoo studio because he was so amazed someone had sent them a cheque for thousands of pounds, and they'd never received one before, and they didn't even know how to process it. We gave a lot of money to Mind as well, but they disappointingly were incredibly ungrateful.
Hmm.
It was like we'd inconvenienced them by sending the money. So it's something that I strongly support, and hence saying the green love heart. People often say to me, "Why do you always put a green love heart after a comment where you thank someone?" And I'm just saying it's okay to not be okay.
Is that what the green love heart means?
Yeah, I've tattooed not thousands. I've tattooed hundreds of them. Hundreds.
Okay.
Yeah.
I thought it was some way of saying I love you, but I'm not gay. That kind of.
No, it's just saying it's okay to not
Hmm.
be okay, and I'm just checking in on you. Hope it's kind of, I suppose, like if I said in a message, "Thanks for having me on, Chris," and then I've got this green love heart, it would be, "Thanks for having me on, Chris. I hope everything's okay up there, and that
Yeah.
all is
Okay.
well, and I am here. If there's anything I can do or you need me, I'm aware that we all struggle. I've struggled, and I'm here if I can be of any help or support." And it's in one emoji, that set statement.
It's not because you think I've got green blood.
No. No.
Mate, what a great chat. Thanks ever so much, Guy.
Thank you.
Go on, no problem. Stay on the line just so I can say goodbye properly. But for the purposes of recording, friends, what a fantastic conversation, and it has been a conversation. I don't do interviews, folks. I'm not interested in that. It might be I never meet Guy again, and I got shit that I want to get out and get his Guy's feedback on. Do you know what I mean? This is what podcasting is all about. I think you still get a lot of people, Guy, they're old school. They think that they're watching an interview, and I actually get people write to me and say, "Why did you speak?" Like,
Yeah, I've had that myself. Yeah.
because like I'm 56 years old and I've invited Guy on here because I hope we'll be friends for a long time, and I want, I generally kind of chat with my friends. That's like I've never been in a bar before, sat down at the bar, and literally not said a word while the person next to me tells me their whole life story. I mean, it probably has happened, but hey ho. Guy, yes, stay on the line. I'm going to thank you properly. Friends, if you can subscribe, that would be absolutely awesome. And take care of yourselves. Much love. By the time you watch this, I might even be on Everest. Ciao, ciao.